How'd you go today?
Hey. I think I'm still settling in.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was
Oh.
interesting. Yeah.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I got really emotional.
Oh.
So I think I just feel a little bit vulnerable. But
I'm an empath, so I'm gonna like
I know, don't look at me like that.
don't look at me.
I'm too sensitive.
Yeah.
No, it was really good and I can't wait to share about it. Yeah. I think because it's literally I've gone from home finishing a rage ceremony and then straight here. So it's like, wow. But I thought what a perfect time to be able to share while I'm still processing. So I'm like really excited. Welcome to the Self-Healing Circle. We just want to show up raw and
this is real time.
yeah. So Soccer was just asking me, I just participated in a rage ceremony as part of a course that I'm doing at the moment because we both love learning. We're learning nerds.
Well, I've just finished a hypnotherapy.
Yeah, which I can't wait for you to share as well, some of the big things that came through for you. But so the one that I just participated in is part of a holistic, it's a gut healing program, but it's very much based on the metaphysical reasons that we have health issues and disease and how there's a very energetic component, like really associated to like repressed emotions and that as well, and not having that healthy expression and release of emotions and how it can like trap in our cells and our tissues and our organs. So one of the ones that really correlates with gut issues is repressed anger and rage. And I think for women especially, like we don't have healthy ways to express those emotions.
No.
It's almost like taboo, like it's not feminine.
Trust me, yeah. Look,
Yes.
Rage and anger has certainly come up for me in my course, but
Whereas I'm very not connected to my anger and rage, so I feel like I rejected that part of myself at a really young age because one of my caregivers was very angry, and I think you can go one or the other way. You either become a product of that or you repress it because you don't want to be anything like that because you've just associated it as like a bad trait, so you go to like extremes to not want to be like that. So I think and also probably I wasn't ever allowed to express that part of me without getting in trouble. Like as a child, if I was angry, it was like, and I think that happens to children. It's like, don't be angry, be happy, get over it, you're okay. Like, so we actually have never really learned how to just like let that emotion kind of express itself in a healthy way. Obviously we don't want to hurt or be harmful to others, but just let that energy really like release from our body. So, so she did actually say that if you have some anger and rage that's repressed, it can sometimes show up in different ways. So for some people, like I feel like you're quite connected to yours. I actually think it's really healthy, like some of yours.
Yeah, whereas, I really show up. If I'm angry, I still show up really angry, don't I? And I can't hide it. And I'm unapologetically angry.
But I think it's healthy. Like, and I think you're still learning healthy ways to release it.
Yeah, I can say things that without thinking too.
Yeah.
But you know what? I've learned to also realize that, hey, that was not helpful in that situation.
Yeah.
And you can apologize. Yeah. I know, right?
Yeah. Owning it as well. Yeah. Whereas I feel like I've always thought of it as a really negative emotion, and I've always thought like, no, I'm better than that. Like, don't let it get to you. So I will try to talk myself out of that feeling. So it might show up for me more as irritation or resentment. Like mine is like, it's my anger and rage is hiding underneath other like emotions that I might feel on a regular basis. So we start the ceremony and it has to be like eyes closed because she's like, you got to be really in your space. And we started with music and she kind of like guided us through it. And it started off with just really connecting to the earth. So just like this really like grounded energy. And then we would do like different movements with our body, like stomping and shaking. So it was very much about connecting with the body, dropping out of the mind, like really getting out of the thoughts and really connecting to the body and its intuition and wisdom.
Is it kind of like that fight-flight mode where you like, you know, the animal trying to shake it?
Maybe that might have been why, possibly, like just to kind of get that like charge, like that energy kind of moving. I would think very likely, because we know how powerful shaking and just that movement. I think it was very much based on like getting out of the mind and into the body. Like she was like, shake your head. Like I would hate to know what I like look like, but like it was in privacy. But and I did feel that like going up to the mind, thinking, and then it's like, no, in the body, let the body show you what's here. Let the body show you what wants to be felt, what wants to be released. And initially, like, so the first thing that came to my mind was, oh my God, you feel so silly and someone's going to walk in and see you. And then I was like, what's the emotion to that? And I was like, oh, it's this shame and embarrassment. And then I was like, oh my God, like it made me really sad that that's in me. And I'm like, but that's okay. Like, and then I actually kind of went straight to sadness, like, and tears came up. I wouldn't say I went straight to like, I don't think it's really easy for me to connect to anger and rage. I actually think I still need to do a bit of work to really connect to that emotion. But initially it was like, just like tears. It was almost like a grieving and a sadness. And as we moved into it, and obviously the music is like kind of guiding you, then she's like, move your body however you want. If you want to get on your knees, if you want to stop, if you want to like punch the pillow, if you want to like use your vocals. I didn't feel called to use my vocals. I know we've done it in the past with our breath work. We do that primal somatic scream, and that is freaking powerful. But my energy didn't feel called to do that, but I did like on my knees. I was like punching the pillow, and I think I was like kind of grieving a part of my inner child, like my child that like had been through so much pain and hurt, and it was like, oh, like I'm fucking pissed about shit like that I feel were really not okay, like violated in so many ways and disrespected and like just abused, like, and it was like there was some anger around that, and I think it was towards like a parent. Then as we kind of got to the end of that really expressing stage, like that kind of like charged emotion, then it was this like beautiful guidance. And she kind of let us just intuitively go with it, which is interesting because I think just naturally where I was going was where she then facilitated after. So what then came to me after was I kind of felt like in the darkness, all my emotions were coming to meet me, but it was me kind of putting my hand out to each one. And it was like the first one was like shame or something like that, or like embarrassment. And it was like I held its hand and I like brought it like towards me and I said, hey, like, how are you trying to help me? And it's like, no, actually the first one was guilt. Guilt was a big one. I think it's around my life a lot. So I held its hand and like brought it to closer to me. And I said, like, how have you been trying to help me? And it said, look, it was then expressing to me, I've been trying to help you by making you feel guilty is making you sensitive to others so you can like adapt your behavior to make sure you keep those relationships so you are loved. And I was like, oh, that's really beautiful. Like, thank you. Like, I see what you've been trying to do for me. And then the next one would come. I think even like jealousy came. It's like, oh, I'm just trying to help you, like, because I want you to like be liked and be like others and be successful. And, you know, like it was like, I'm giving you that feeling for these benefits that will come from that. And it was like, yes, okay, it's dysfunctional a little bit, but I could see and appreciate that it only just had goodness for me. Like, and then it's like the next one would come and then we're like, kind of did remind me a bit of Inside Out, like the characters. Like it's almost like there was this almost visual imagery and we were like all together. Oh,
the sadness.
I know, like it was just all these parts of me and I was like, oh, like it's okay, like I love you and I can accept all of this about me because it's only just wants love for me. Like it's only just trying to help me. And when I can see that, I'm not going to like add another layer of shame for feeling ways that I feel aren't good or my behavior might be, you know, like it's like I can bring myself back to like balance a lot quicker when I'm not fighting these parts of myself or wronging myself or trying to distract or resist it. Like it was just this really beautiful integrating of all these parts of me that only just want to like support me and love me. And when I have that better relationship with it, it just felt really harmonious and that no emotion is too great for me to handle. And no emotion, you know, I know you've said it once, it's like, when as children did we learn that emotion is a bad emotion? Because it's just a sensation, but then the mental association to it is it's bad, it's negative, you shouldn't want that, you should fight that and try to get rid of it as quick as possible. It was kind of like that acknowledgement that like even these emotions that we think are negative and bad, when we just give space for them and love them and just accept that it's okay to feel that way, like it's a really different relationship with them. And so you can allow them to move through you and just release however they need to, but there's no inner battle or struggle or war happening. And it's actually not that bad. No feeling is that bad. It's when you go to the mind.
Yes.
So I feel like I'm still processing. So it was actually really nice to talk that out because you're like the first person that I've really had and with you guys to share. So I thought because at first I had soccer on standby, like I'm going to just see how I feel. And if I'm feeling a bit not good to do our podcast, like I'll just let you know if it was too heavy. But I was like, no, fuck that. Like I'm going to show up because what a great way to process it by talking it out and sharing with other people.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Stop
I love
it.
you.
I'm going to cry.
Stop.
Oh, and thanks, beautiful. I'm so lucky to have you.
Oh, wow, that's I feel very honoured to be able to.
I really do.
She does.
I do. Yeah.
Wow, that's. I felt like that was actually just almost watching the movie, just then, wasn't it?
Just seeing it from that lens.
And sometimes we feel like there's the word that pattern interrupt. We can stay in that space for too long. And then it's kind of like, well, okay, you've given it space, what would you say if someone was in there for too long? Because when someone's in there for too long, it can go down you can dip even deeper into a place of depression. And I mentioned that to you a couple of days ago. And it does come in, ebbs and flows for us, and in particular for me, that we kind of go through these stages where we are learning, we are, processing, we, doing courses for our betterment. But then we find ourselves that things bubble up as well during that process. And then I discovered something like yourself, the rage and anger. Yeah. God, this is a podcast about rage and anger probably. Yeah.
Answering that question though, like what to do if you're in it for too long. Yeah. I feel like if you're in it too long, you've got to just self-evaluate. Is it that you're in the emotion, like the physical sensation, and actually giving space to the feeling and emotion, or are we in the mind? Because what happens is I think we stay in it for too long and we loop when there's a story, and it's more about like I'm actually not feeling the emotion the way I think I am. I'm actually in the mind creating like a story. I'm in the narrative. I'm entwined my identity with it. Like I am depressed, I am angry. And then you loop into the stories and the problems versus dropping out of the mind and into the body, that more somatic, like actually just being like, I'm going to hold this. I'm going to give it space. I'm going to feel into it. I'm going to like talk to it. Like I feel like they're two different ways to be with the emotion. Yeah. One is actually more of, believe it or not, staying in the mind is actually being disassociated to your emotion. So staying up here versus actually dropping in and just being with it. If we can do that long enough, you'll find it will naturally pass quicker. Yeah. If we stay in the mind and keep looping between feeling it, but then the story about it. And then I think it becomes more of a permanent state because you've actually entwined it with your identity versus just a feeling that wants to be felt and moving through me. Yeah.
So like, this is me. I'm always angry.
Yeah. It's become an identity. Yeah. So then it's just a habitual thinking pattern. Then it triggers a feeling. Then go back to the mind, triggers a fear. And then we're just in this loop versus actually healing it.
It requires work.
It does.
And
it's hard.
I think
because it's habitual to go up here. Yeah. Versus staying in the sensation.
It's easy to loop.
Yeah.
I find myself walking around and thinking about the same thought over and over and over and over, and you can feel...
Yeah. And, sometimes the feeling you're feeling isn't actually that emotion, it's the resistance to feeling that emotion. So you might have anger or frustration, but usually frustration even, and sometimes even like what you think is anger is actually you resisting really dropping into it. When you drop into it and fully surrender to that feeling, it feels different. You'll actually find it staying in the mind and then resisting feeling that's actually what's causing more discomfort than actually the feeling of it rawly as it is. Yeah, I'm learning that slowly,
And, and I've found that also I have done it where I have dropped into the body. There's a sense of peace.
Yes.
There's also the crying aspect that comes from it. And I think it was the crying that probably is, okay, where am I? Oh, shit. I'm in a park and there's tears streaming down your face. And so it's then the ego comes in and goes, come on, wipe your tears away.
Yeah.
You'll be all right. And I find myself at that point there, it's like, am I not nurturing my time to cry enough, or have I stopped myself from crying, or
distracted?
The distraction of wanting to cry, of not wanting to cry, is the story that I often find myself in. And I think now just hearing what you're saying now is like, oh shit, I've just got to allow that space for myself to cry. And just,
you know what's really funny? Because one of the things that in the course, she says the anger and rage is really a protective layer that underneath it is a lot of grief. So she says to really move through the anger rage will drop you into the grief. So I think it actually is really natural to cry and grieve a part of your life or yourself or your pain. It's just the breaking through, because she even says one of the things is like, ask your anger and rage, how are you trying to help me? Like, what are you trying to protect me from? And then generally it is from feeling that really like pain, not that it's painful grief, but it's interesting that you do cry and maybe you're not giving that space, because maybe that's what really wants to be felt underneath that. Once you've broken through the anger rage, maybe that's what's underneath it that really wants to be felt. Yeah. I just thought it was interesting how she explained it like that. I was like, oh, that's so understandable, but you have to go through it to get to the core of the wounded emotion.
And unless you've got actually someone talking you through it, it can be the most loneliest experience for anybody to go through. And there's a saying, if someone's got to die to sort of be reborn again, and that resonates so much with me, because I think there's a lot of stories that I've told myself this week about my old self that I've had to let go and also let it die, because it's like I've actually changed in so many ways. And I think also with you through this experience, wow, what a transformation for you, hey?
Thank you. But it's nice that we're doing this work, and you're doing so much work, and that's you then being able to go through this process to then be able to help others and guide others, because we want to continue our healing. And I know, like, even just what you said then, it is really painful and hard, and especially then when we're trying to come back into society, because you've just done a week hypno, which we would love to hear about. But you can feel a little bit disorientated, like you said, grieving parts of you that are dying off, and then you've got to like go back to your normal life and act normal, but inside you're like, I'm still struggling within myself because I'm having this healing crisis. I'm going through the dark night of the soul, or like identity crisis, and now I just have to like be normal in society, and it's really hard because you're changing, and it's how you're showing up and who you are is changing, and it can be really hard to then kind of go back into like normal life and knowing how to be, because you're changing, and
it changes your friendships circles, it changes your family dynamic, and it can change the relationship you have with your partner, but also more so with yourself. You can lose yourself in this process, and losing yourself is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that you've got to sit with what it is that you really want, and just feel through it. It's the most weirdest thing, because you're kind of going, is this my true self now? Is this who I really am?
And is it that like losing yourself is shedding a lot of your identity and being bare for a while? Like, and maybe that's not a bad thing, but it feels really uncomfortable, because we can't then just kind of default back to old coping mechanisms, because it's like that armor's been brought down, those old default mechanisms, and it's this really like vulnerable, exposed.
Oh, it's so, and it's kind of like you almost have to reintroduce yourself to yourself.
Yeah. It is an identity crisis, isn't it?
It is, and I've looked in the mirror a few times, and I look at myself and I'm like, I'm not the same Soccer I was a week ago. I'm totally different. And I've noticed things that actually there is light to this. I've noticed that, oh, wow, I've, I feel young. You know, I feel youthful. Something there, there's something that's reignited, that rebirth, that youthful or funness that comes through as well. So there is magic at the end.
Yeah. Because how are you feeling? Because obviously we talked after your being in Hypnoland, so you did your advanced hypno. And obviously doing that, you had to work through a lot of your stuff, and I know that kind of brought up a lot for you. How, like, is there anything you wanted to share about what came up for you? Or I'm going to plug Evolve and Relaunch in this one because Paul and Juliet have been amazing through this, and if it wasn't for them, if it wasn't for you, they're amazing. We've both done our NLP, masters, hypno, but you've gone even further, which is awesome because then I get to learn from her.